There's a kind of power that doesn't glitter, it doesn't shout. And most people, if they ever brushed against it, would run. Not because they're weak, but because this kind of power rewires you from the inside out. It's not the power of followers or fame. It's not even the power to control others. It's deeper. It's colder. It's the kind of power that slips into your bloodstream, twists how you see the world. And once you touch it, you never really come back. Machiavelli didn't romanticize power. He warned us most people aren't built for it, not real power. Give it to the average man, and he cracks. He thinks being feared means being respected. He grows louder, more reckless, clinging to the illusion of strength. And he doesn't notice the people circling him, the ones smiling too wide, waiting to strike when his guard drops. That's why Machiavelli didn't write for the crowd. He wasn't crafting guidebooks for the many. His words were for the one in the shadows, the quiet strategist, the ruler who never needed a crown to move a kingdom. And if you're still here listening, maybe you've always known you weren't meant to be average. But let me tell you this, you better be careful, because the level of power we're about to explore doesn't care if you're ready. It will burn through you if you're not. And it starts with something most people never master: emotional detachment. People talk about power like it's a performance. They chase the spotlight. They want applause, validation numbers, noise. But that's just surface tension. Machiavelli understood that real power, the kind that endures, doesn't depend on how others feel about you. It starts when you stop being moved by their reactions. You see it all the time. Someone gets a little influence and suddenly they're hooked on it. Every word is calculated to win approval. Every decision bent by the fear of being disliked. They trade their edge for applause, thinking they're winning hearts, but really, they're handing away control. Machiavelli would have scoffed at that, because the second your self-worth gets tangled in how others see you, you've already made yourself small. Even if they kneel in front of you, you're still beneath them in your mind. His most dangerous students weren't cruel, they weren't loud, they were cold. Not heartless, but still. Still like deep water. Still like something that doesn't need to prove itself. Because when you stop flinching when someone begs or flatters or threatens and you don't move, they know. You're not like them. You've stepped into another kind of gravity. But here's the catch. The more detached you become, the more they'll claw at you. You've changed, they'll say. You don't care anymore. And they'll throw bait at you. Guilt, shame, praise, trying to reel you back into their world. The world where you're manageable, predictable, soft. Don't bite. Because the second you take that bait, you show them you were faking it. That your power had strings after all. But if you hold the line, if you watch the chaos swirl and you don't blink, something else happens. They recognize it. You've crossed over. You're not one of them anymore. Now let's talk about the second truth. Power isn't granted. It's not gifted. It's not something you wait for with your hands out. Real power is taken, but not with noise or rebellion. It's taken in silence. Most people want a title. They want someone to crown them, validate them, say, "Now you're in charge." That's weakness. Machiavelli knew better. The ones who truly hold power, they don't ask for it. They don't even announce it. They just become it. It's in the way others pause when they speak, the way rooms tilt when they enter. They don't shout over people, they barely speak at all, but their decisions ripple through every conversation. Not because they demanded respect, but because they occupied a space no one else dared to fill. You don't get there by accident. It's a long game. You learn who's soft, who's loud for attention. You study the people who talk too much. And then you do the opposite. You say less. You move cleaner. You strike when no one's looking. And by the time they realize what happened, you've already redrawn the map. And they're standing in a position you chose for them. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said it's better to be feared than loved, if you can't be both. But his version of fear wasn't brutality. It was unreadability. It was being so steady, so subtly dominant, that even love carried a little shiver. And here's the third truth in this layer. If you don't control your environment, it will shape you into something soft, something forgettable. It happens all the time. A man rises, he wins, he builds. And then he gets comfortable. He lets the wrong people in. He starts laughing more, trusting too quickly, ignoring the signs. And the environment that once clapped for him, it turns, quietly at first, then with fangs. Because power has gravity, and everything around it either sharpens you or wears you down. There is no middle ground. Machiavelli didn't just say to be smart. He said to be savage about your circle. Guard it like a lion guards meat. Because the moment you're surrounded by people who drain you, who lie, who panic, who beg for your energy, you've already started to rot. The strongest minds in his philosophy knew when to cut people off, not with drama, not with cruelty, with clarity, quietly. They disappeared. They observed from a distance, and they never explained. Because if someone can't handle your boundary, they don't belong near your power. This level of power isn't glamorous. It isn't thrilling. It's surgical. It's quiet. It's lonely. But if you can sit with that, if you can be still while others flail watch without needing to disappear when it's time, or reappear with control, then you're ready, because that wasn't the end. That was just the foundation. What comes next is stranger, darker, and even more powerful, weaponized invisibility, psychological gravity, bending perception, until people move the way you want without even knowing why. But we'll get to that soon. There's a moment when real power stops being visible and starts becoming gravitational. You don't announce it. You don't decorate it. You become the thing that pulls the room into orbit without moving a muscle. That's where the second layer begins, psychological gravity. And the weapon isn't noise. It's silence. See, most people walk into a room and try to shine. They want to be noticed. They speak faster, laugh louder, wear something that screams for attention. But the one who holds true power, he does the opposite. He dims himself, not because he's hiding, but because he doesn't need to flash to be felt. He speaks last, says little, but everything he says sticks. Why? Because silence, when it's earned, isn't empty. It's pressure. It's dominance in slow motion. The quieter you are, the more others start filling in the blanks for you. They try harder, they talk more, they reveal more. Because in your stillness, they feel exposed. Machiavelli's students knew this. They didn't rush to speak. They didn't try to fill the air. They let the noise pass them by. They watched. And when they finally said something, it wasn't a line. It was a weight. And it landed in people's minds like a hook that never left. The truth is, when you become that quiet presence, people begin to orbit your silence. And when they speak into your silence, something strange happens. They start revealing who they really are. Their anxieties, their desire to be validated, their desperate need to impress you. It all spills out. And now, without lifting a finger, you know more than they ever intended to give. You hold the high ground, not because you fought for it, but because they handed it to you. This is where selective illusion comes in. Machiavelli didn't believe in full transparency. Even with your allies, your intentions should never be fully seen. Because what people can't predict, they fear. What they can't label, they respect. So you learn to craft contradiction on purpose. Be the man who preaches peace, but shows teeth when provoked. Be the one who appears generous, but gives only when it serves a larger aim. Be approachable, but keep everyone guessing how close they really are. That's how tension is created. And tension, when controlled, is the root of real authority, because certainty breeds comfort, and comfort breeds assumptions. But if they can't quite place you, if every compliment feels a little off, if every smile comes with a question mark, they stay alert. And alert people are easier to lead. They'll ask themselves, who is he really? And in trying to solve you, they stop guarding themselves. You've entered their mind now. And once you're in there, you're in control. But here's the real art separating empathy from strategy. You don't have to become a monster. You don't have to stop feeling. But if you want to survive at this level, you must learn to feel deeply without being moved by it. That's where most people collapse. They see someone hurting and their emotions pull them into action. They give ground. They make soft decisions to feel like good people. But Machiavelli warned power and emotion rarely mix cleanly. When your choices start serving your feelings instead of your vision, you've already given the keys away. So you train for this. You watch someone suffer, but you don't intervene impulsively. You hear excuses, but you don't soften your standards. You feel it, but you move logically. That's not cruelty. That's control. You become untouchable not by being numb, but by knowing when to act and when to observe. And when they try to earn your praise, don't give it. Make them chase a validation you never offered. Because nothing enslaves like unreceived approval. When someone flatters you, deflect. When they seek a reaction, stay quiet. When they do something good, say nothing at all. Why? Because what's unspoken haunts them. It lingers, it loops in their mind. They start rehearsing what they should have said. They start craving another chance. And now, without touching them, you own the space in their head. You've become their mirror, their compass, their unseen judge. They'll contort themselves chasing your nod. And they'll thank you for it. Because power doesn't always feel like domination. Sometimes it feels like absence that burns. Now let's talk about exits. Most people think power is about arrival. They obsess over the entrance, the moment you walk in, the first words you say. But Machiavelli understood something more dangerous. The exit is where power crystallizes. Leave at your peak. Not forever, just enough. Pull back from those getting too familiar. Step away from dynamics you've already mastered. Disappear from spaces where your silence is louder than your presence. And let them wonder, why did he leave? Did I do something? Is he coming back? That mystery is where your myth begins. Because when you vanish with precision, you don't just exit a room. You echo in it. And the one who controls his own disappearance also controls how he's remembered. This isn't cruelty, it's discipline. It's the patience to know that presence is a weapon, but absence is a shadow that sticks. And most people fear what they can't find more than what they see clearly. And now, maybe you understand why most people implode at this level. They want to be seen. They want to be clapped for. They want to be understood. But that need, it's what makes them predictable. And predictability kills power faster than failure ever will. You don't need everyone to get you. You don't need to explain. You need to become something so precise, so cold, so unreadable that even your enemies speak about you with respect. Because now we move into the third layer, where you stop reacting entirely. You stop being a person and start becoming an idea. And ideas, they live forever. What's more terrifying than a man with power? A man with power who cannot be predicted. Because once you're unpredictable, fear isn't just about what you've done. It's about what you might do next. And that fear, it multiplies in silence. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. Predictable men are easy prey, easy to understand, easy to manipulate. If you flatter them, they soften. If you challenge them, they explode. If you ignore them, they chase. You can press the same buttons again and again, and they'll give you the same result every time. But the man who breaks his patterns, that's the one who becomes a storm no one can map. So here's what most people never learn. Break your own patterns, publicly, unexpectedly. It sounds backward, but it works like fire in a dry field. People build mental models of you. They think they know how you'll respond, how you'll feel, what you'll allow, and then without warning, you do something opposite. Smile when they expect fury. Walk away when they're ready for war. Go silent when they expect comfort. Offer help once, then vanish. Break the pattern, and suddenly they lose the rules. Every move they make becomes a guess. Every interaction becomes a calculation. Is this real? Am I being tested? Is he watching me? Now you've planted doubt. And once doubt takes root, control begins, because you're no longer a man to them. You've become a question they can't answer, a shifting formula they can't solve. That's where you win, and you can go deeper. Use what Machiavelli might have called strategic reversals. Act consistently until they relax, then shatter it. If you're always the diplomat, become blunt once. If you're always rational, show fire just once. If you're always generous, deny a small favor without reason. What happens next is beautiful. Their sense of safety collapses. They start checking their tone, watching your face, overthinking every word. Not because you hurt them, but because you confuse them. And confusion breeds obsession. People fear what they can't predict, so make sure they never predict you. Then comes a more subtle weapon, concealed intelligence. Speak less than you know, always. Machiavelli once wrote that a wise man walks in the steps of great men. But what he didn't say outright is this: great men don't expose their full knowledge. They hide half of what they see. That's how they stay ahead. You never show your full hand. You don't explain your reasoning. You end conversations in ambiguity. You let them guess where you stand. You know the truth, but let others lie around you. And when you say nothing, that's when they start censoring themselves. Not because you demanded it, but because they fear your judgment unspoken, invisible but felt. This is when your silence becomes your sharpest edge. People will adapt not to your rules, but to the possibility of your disapproval. And that's invisible leadership, the kind that doesn't need commands, just presence. And the presence is sculpted not by speech, but by implication. You want to become unforgettable? Then leave open threads. Most people want to finish every sentence, explain every emotion, offer closure. But power lives in the unfinished, in the incomplete. Try this. Say we'll talk, then never bring it up again. Begin a sentence, pause, and shift topics. Walk out mid-conversation, but with no anger, just stillness. And now you've created mental hooks. People will loop your silence. They'll replay the moment. What was he going to say? Did I mess up? Is something coming? They'll spiral. And while they're spiraling, you're already gone. You now live in their head. And you didn't need force. You didn't need control. You just planted a few unfinished thoughts and let their mind torture itself trying to complete the story. That's what Machiavelli meant by ruling through perception. And here's the final piece of this layer. Stop trying to control people directly. That's clumsy, transparent, weak. Instead, control consequences. You don't need to micromanage. You just build a system where disrespect is followed by silence, where overstepping leads to absence, where betrayal meets a locked door. And you don't explain, you don't argue, you just vanish. And soon people around you begin correcting themselves, not because you told them to, but because they've learned when you withdraw, something shifts. They lose more than access. They lose the comfort of knowing they're still welcome in your world. That's the kind of power that doesn't need volume. It doesn't need revenge. It simply rearranges the rules by existing. You never scream. You never chase. You just become the kind of man whose disappointment hurts more than punishment, and whose silence feels like exile. This is the third layer of power unpredictability. And now, maybe you see why most men can't hold it. They want to be liked. They want to be seen. They want to be safe. But all of that is a trap, because safety creates habits, and habits create patterns, and patterns are prisons. But you're breaking out of that. You're not here to be predictable. You're here to become something else entirely. Something they can't pin down, can't prepare for, can't defend against. Because the next and final layer isn't about action anymore. It's about aura, the myth, the legend, the whisper of your name when you're not in the room. And that is where immortality begins. This is where power becomes more than strategy. It becomes presence. Most people chase influence like it's a race. They want to be loud, to be seen, to be remembered by their words, their actions, their success stories. But the truth Machiavelli understood, the real truth, is that none of that survives time. Your speeches will fade. Your victories will be rewritten. Your face will disappear from the room. But your aura, that, if you craft it right, will echo. Because the final transformation isn't about gaining power. It's about becoming it. You stop moving like a man. You move like a myth. You become something people talk about even after you're gone. Not because of what you said, but because of how they felt in your presence and the silence you left behind. To get there, you have to become a symbol. Choose your archetype and never betray it. People don't follow personalities. They follow ideas. They follow consistency. They follow patterns they can't quite explain, but can always feel. That's why you don't change shapes. You don't adjust to the room. You burn the bridge back to normal. Because your myth will only be as strong as your refusal to break character. Maybe you're the cold strategist, precise still distant with words that feel like final judgments. Maybe you're the polite destroyer, charming to the surface but untouchable beneath. Or the smiling observer, gentle on the outside, lethal in silence. But once you choose it, you are it in every room, every glance, every pause. Don't drop the mask in private. Don't soften when you're alone. You build a presence so sharp, so deliberate, that it cuts into the memory of everyone you touch. And the more consistent you are, the more powerful your absence becomes. Even your enemies will kneel before someone who never breaks character. And here's where it gets even darker. Don't confirm, don't deny. Powerful men aren't remembered by what they admit. They're remembered by what's whispered. Machiavelli never left fingerprints. He created chaos through ambiguity. And so should you. Let them believe the rumors. Let them wonder what's true and what's performance. If someone accuses you of cruelty, smile. If they praise your genius, change the subject. If they fear your silence, keep it. Because the moment they start building stories about you that you never gave them, you've become story-worthy. Now you're no longer just a person, you're legend. You don't leave behind explanations. You leave behind shapes, ghosts, tension. Walk out of a room mid-conversation. Compliment someone unexpected just once. Offer your support and vanish. These aren't games. They're memory architecture. People won't remember the facts. They'll remember the unease, the confusion, the unresolved heat. That's what haunts them. That's the shape you leave in their mind. Make loyalty dangerous. Don't ask for it. Don't beg for it. Engineer it. Machiavelli understood the weight of allegiance. But he also knew that fear binds tighter than love. So make loyalty feel like walking a razor. Protect those who speak your name with excess in private. But if someone betrays you, don't warn. Don't shout. Just act swiftly, quietly, and let them realize what they've lost only after it's too late. When people see that your loyalty cuts both ways, when they understand your approval is scarce, but your wrath is unknowable, they don't just stay loyal. They begin to worship. They serve you not to be loved, but to avoid being erased. And when you reach this level, stop speaking. Start sculpting. You don't use words anymore. You use silence, timing, space. You control perception without saying a single sentence. You become the one who walks in 5 seconds late on purpose. The one who pauses too long when answering. The one who smiles without showing warmth. The one who always ends conversations first. You don't dress for attention. You dress colder, quieter, one level beneath everyone else. Why? Because now your cues matter more than any speech. You're not just a man anymore. You're a frequency, a signature, a shape they recognize but can never duplicate. And this is what destroys normal people. Because they want to be known. They want to be praised. They want to be understood. But you've trained yourself to be felt. You're no longer chasing power. You are power, not because of what you do, but because of what others become in your presence. They speak softer, they try harder, they second-guess everything. Not because you asked them to, but because something about you shifted the entire room. And they can't explain it. That's the final transformation. The one Machiavelli never wrote as a chapter because it couldn't be taught with words. It could only be become. The myth, the whisper, the man no one could quite figure out, but everyone adjusted for. You didn't arrive there by accident. You built it one silence at a time.